Welcome to day number 2, your first learning day. So today we're going to learn a number of things about yoga. And tomorrow, day number 3, we are going to put those things into practice. But before we get into the learning part of today's session, I want to make sure that you have everything that you need in order to be successful at your yoga practice. So in yoga, we use a couple of tools to help us with the yoga practice. Some of them are required, some of them are optional. For beginning students, for beginners, it is advisable to have some of those optional things just to help them out on their yoga journey. So let me start with the first tool that is an absolute must, that tool being your yoga mat. So the yoga mat that we use is something that prevents us from sliding on the floor and also cushions our bones and joints and feet and arms and legs, everything that's touching the floor from the hard surfaces. So make sure you have a relatively thicker yoga mat, 5 to 10 millimeters in depth. And this is just to make sure that you, for example, if you have very sensitive knees, it's a little bit more comfortable on your knees. The other thing is that make sure that the surface of the mat has a bit of a texture so that you can't really slide your hands easily on the texture. So when you, for example, hold a downward dog, your hands and feet don't slide sideways. So that's number 1. And that's probably the only required yoga prop that you will use. So everything else is really optional. Blocks are optional, although are highly recommended. The way we use blocks in yoga is by bringing the ground closer to us. So instead of reaching all the way down to the ground, maybe it's inaccessible in a specific pose, we can put a block on a different height, and bringing the ground closer to us makes the yoga pose a little bit more accessible to us. You can technically get away with 1 block, but I strongly suggest having 2 blocks. You can pick them up anywhere, either online or in your local store. Second thing, we need a yoga strap. Once again, optional, but for beginners, it's quite useful to have one around. You can have one with the loop, or you can just have one without the loop, and you can make a belt. And the way we use yoga straps is very simple. For example, we can use it for shoulder flossing, just to open up our shoulders, or we can have a loop and we can put it onto our feet and pull on a belt to help us with stretching out our hamstrings. Just a couple of examples. Now, if you don't have a fancy yoga strap like I do, you can always take your bathrobe and use the belt from the bathrobe, and it works just as easy and well as the yoga strap. The next thing is a yoga towel. I actually don't have a yoga towel because I don't really use it in my practice, because I use a bolster. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you have a yoga towel, or if you don't, you can use a beach towel like I do. And essentially, the whole function of the towel is to once again cushion your body as it lies on the ground. You could put it under your neck, under your knees, and under your lower back when lying down on the floor in Shavasana or the corpse pose, plus some of the other poses. So definitely very handy tool to have around. Last but not the least, a yoga bolster. So I have an actual yoga bolster, which is just a nice firm pillow. If you don't have a yoga bolster, not a big deal. You can take out a pillow and use the pillow as well. And it really serves the same purpose as the towel, in the sense that you can actually sit on it, except that the surface is obviously much wider, so it's a much easier sit. And the reason is we want to do that is we want to elevate our spine, our hips, so that our spine is a little bit more straight. I'll tell more about that as we dive deeper into the lesson. So, optional, highly recommended, optional, and definitely a must. So with those tools in place, we are now positioned to start our learning journey. And we're going to start it with the first pose called Sukhasana, easy sitting pose.